G'day, folks. It's me, Greg. We're back. It's Friday. It's lunch and learn day. It's Friday, the 5th of July already. Can you believe it? We're into the new financial year. And if you're in the new financial year, you're probably thinking about your budget and your forecast and all those things. Maybe you've done that in March, but this is for the people who are late. We've been doing our budgeting and forecasting pipeline that we've been building in Fabric and Power BI, and we want to use data ops, and we want to build a cool thing, and we want to use IBCS, awesome visualization techniques, and all the things. So we're trying to build a proper budgeting and forecasting pipeline, and this is the basic data architecture, I guess. So this is our entry to insight value stream. There's entry, here's insight. The things we're going to talk about today. I've done some work. I know I said I wouldn't do any work except in front of you, but I did do some work in Excel to update our budgeting and forecasting sheet. It's not perfect, and there's still work to be done. But we got it to at least a new version, so we've iterated, which is nice. We'll talk about all the different departments and organizations that this company has, because we're not just trying to do one budget. We're trying to consolidate multiple budgets from multiple organizations and multiple departments. Okay, that's the point. Well, we might as well make it challenging for ourselves. There's no point just doing one budget. So we'll figure out how we're doing that. We're going to bring in this consolidation. I have moved this forecasting. I think that's just going to happen in the spreadsheet in the first version. So forecasting is going to happen in the spreadsheet, and I'll talk to you about why that is when we get to it, because Excel kind of has pretty good forecasting that you can kind of just use, and so I want to we'll have a bit of a discussion about what the structure of this spreadsheet should be, and then we can talk about maybe how that would work in other systems. But I'm not against maybe in the future, in a future episode, maybe we build like a ML model that does forecasting at some point, but that's not happening just yet. So that's all going to happen in the spreadsheets. Then we're just going to consolidate the budget and the forecast together. And then we're going to build our KPIs over here. I haven't decided how we're going to do the KPI bit yet. So that'll be an interesting one as well. So that's our EBITDA basically, and all of these other KPIs. But that's going to be calculated here because we can't do that in the spreadsheet, because EBITDA, we need to know tax, and we need to know like a bunch of other things, depreciation. So that needs to be calculated first before we can do our KPIs. And so we'll put our KPIs into its own special bucket. But the budget and the forecast can be done at the department level, and we want it done at the department level. And so that's why. Okay. We've got 20 people in the room. Awesome. Welcome, folks. Okay. What else are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how I fixed the Workspace branching issue. I got some advice from my super awesome data engineering lead, Rajiv. He told me how to do the Workspace branching properly. So we'll do that. I'll show you how that works. And then I think I just want to start ingesting data into my bronze layer, which is like kind of here. We'll do this consolidation. This is bronze as well. So we'll do this consolidation in here, and then that way we'll be doing something. So we're going to do a little bit of Excel. We're going to talk a little bit about workspace administration. We're going to do a little bit of data ingest. Hopefully I can get it all done properly within the hour. If you have any questions or you want to talk about anything in particular, feel free to let me know. Just chuck something in the chat or let me know what's happening. If you're new, let me know as well. Put a little, hey, I'm new in the chat and I'm from Melbourne or wherever you're from. That would be cool too. All right. Do I have anything else before we start? I don't think so. So let's hop into it. So I think I'm going to do the WS branching thing first, because that's the one that I think is interesting. So I'm going to log into my Power BI environment. I'll just do that off screen. I'm trying to be better with my, governance and security. I'm going to make sure that we do the right thing. Okay, what was I doing? Aardvark GN Development was my workspace that we were in. We work for the Aardvark Corporation. Okay, and I've got source control already set up, but we'll create a whole new workspace for Steve or someone, and then we'll do it. And as you can see, it's working. See, it's syncing. Oh, there's no Git status, so maybe that's not syncing. Maybe I haven't done it yet. But, you know, like I got it all in here and we kind of got it working. Oh, there's a change to the budget versus actual report that I just made. That's this report here. Must have saved it, and so it registered a change. See, it's all good. Things are working. And what we wanted to do, for those of you that are new, for a quick recap, you definitely need to go back and watch all the others if you want the full recap. But this is the diagram. So we've got two developers. Developer A, that's Greg. Developer B, that's Steve. And developer A wants to create stuff in Power BI Desktop and then update that stuff and then publish it to a development workspace. That's what this D is here, right? Right, so we just want to publish so we create a report and then we publish it. Now this ADO, this is DevOps. So we're using a DevOps pipeline to publish our stuff into development. And then developer B also wants to do the same thing. So what we have in this little diagram here is we've got a main branch, which is like the master version of our report. Developer A goes off and creates his feature, and developer B goes off and creates their feature, and then they can merge it back into the main branch, right? So we want to branch and merge our development out of the main and then back in as we go. So it's a complicated setup, but this is what we need to do to be able to increase the reliability of our development. We've got multiple people working on our Power BI. It's all that kind of good stuff. And with the thing that we struck last week is we tried to create a workspace for Greg, that's me, GN, and then branch off and create a new version of all of the code, and it didn't work. It broke. Okay. So I'm going to create another workspace. I'm going to call this aardvark underscore SG Steve development. I choose Steve because he's sometimes here in the meeting. I don't know if he's here today, but anyway. No domain. We could put a little picture of Steve if we wanted to as a workspace image, but we won't do that. This is Steve's feature development workspace for aardvark. So this is so that Steve can just work on his own features and test them inside the Power BI service without actually breaking production, right? So that's why he has his own workspace. Okay, under advanced, I'm the owner. It's under the trial, Fabric trial. 27 days left. Woohoo, they've reset me. It gave me a warning. I had like 3 days left the other day. So we're back. 27. Oh, I don't have Zoom it. Oh my goodness. All right, but let me start Zoom it like I'd always do at the beginning of everything. Okay, Zoom it should be working now, and it is. Great. Okay. So creating a completely blank workspace, and it's a Fabric workspace. So it's got a diamond. It's got a diamond next to it. And this is Steve's feature development workspace. And what we want to do is bring all of our cool stuff from our main workspace, which is our aardvark finance dev workspace. This is our main workspace. It has cool things in it. Look at that. We have a whole diagram in here and everything. Like we're very advanced in our thinking at this. We're very high level data platform people. Okay, so we're going to go back to Steve's workspace. So we need to figure out how to branch it. Now, last time, the mistake that I made is I created the branch in Azure DevOps. So I'll quickly log into Azure DevOps while I'm talking. So inside Azure DevOps, I very stupidly, well, not stupidly, I mean, it makes sense, but unfortunately, it doesn't work. So if you create your branch over here in the DevOps world, and I'll bring it over in a second, it's just signing in. If you create your branch over in the DevOps world, it breaks this side of the thing, and it breaks Power BI. So what we need to do is create the branch in Power BI, or in Fabric, I should say. Create the branch in Fabric, and then it'll sync properly with our thing. Okay, so here's our Azure DevOps environment. We've got a repository. It's got all of our code in it. Lovely. This is our code repository. This is where all the main, and we've got 3 branches. We've got a main branch. Here's the code for the main branch. Here's the GN test 0001 branch. This is the one that I created in here, and I broke everything. Okay, so that's GN test 001. That was the broken one. And then I've got this the 0001 underscore report 01. That's the branch that I created to test it out this week. Thanks to Rajiv. So we've got 3 copies of our code now. Okay. 2 branch copies and the main copy. This is the one that goes to production. So we don't want to break this one. What we want to do is branch it. Branch off it, make our change, test it, make sure it's all good, merge it back in, publish it to the production. Super amazing development processes. Okay, so how do we do this? So what we don't want to do is create our branch here, which is what I did. I was like, hey, we could just like create a new branch here. There's a button here. It says new branch. Why don't I just do that? Don't create it in your repo, create it from Fabric. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So this main branch is synced to our dev workspace. Okay, so there's a sync in place, and here it says get status synced. Okay, and then this one's unsupported, these data flows down here, which we've talked about. Okay, so we want to sync. That sync won't work unless we, oops, wrong workspace. That sync will not work unless we create the branch from within our thing here. So how do we do that? We have to go to workspace settings up here on the right. I can't. This one, workspace settings, click on that. Aardvark, Steve Goslin, development. He hasn't been given a domain. And then we go here to get integration. Get integration. Click on get integration. It automatically connects to Azure DevOps. Support at some point is coming for GitHub as well. GitHub, question mark. Yes, GitHub will come, but it's only DevOps right now. So if you're a DevOps person, then you're happy, and everybody else fresh out of luck, sorry, until they get the support. Friday Fabric project. We are doing our Git repository is our Friday Fabric Git repository. Our branch is, and this is where we need to click new branch from here. Okay. So we create the branch inside this UI here, and then we call it whatever the feature name is that we're creating, 002, ABC 123. So this is what this will be is whatever it is inside, say your ticketing system or whatever, if you've got a job assigned to you, you want to give it a name that means, I'm working on this feature. It could be like, instead of being like just an unreadable, non-readable human number, it could be like feature report 01 or whatever, something like that. I don't know if you can have underscores or not. Maybe we'll test that. We'll call it that. And we'll create it from, and then it gives you the option, and you want to choose your main branch. So you could branch from another branch, and that would be a nightmare, right? So let's just so you could have a feature branch that is like release, spring 2024 or whatever release, and then you could branch off that, and individuals could work off developers. That's why you can branch off branches. Okay, but we're going to create it from main, and we hit create, and it doesn't allow invalid characters. That was a good test. Okay. So whenever I've come across something like this, I always immediately move to lowercase, and then I just put underscores so use like that kind of nomenclature or whatever. Feature report 001, you can put in a Git folder if you want. If you've got a folder structure inside your Git, I don't have one, so I'm not going to bother. Connect and sync. Syncing. So now, hopefully, we will see the branch get created into our development workspace, and we will be hunky-dory. It's all coming in nicely. So far, so good. Hopefully, the report will come in too. Now it says, oh, we weren't able to update the following item. This is just a bug that seems to just come up no matter what. These staging warehouses for data flows. Now, data flows are an unsupported item, and then the staging warehouse associated with the data flow doesn't work. It's kind of weird. That I was getting that bug last time as well, but this time at least we're getting some syncing actually working. But this does seem like a work in progress, I will say, because if you've got a data flow, then you're going to get all these syncing errors and stuff. They really need to start supporting data flows in Git integration. I would say this is probably something that, like, if you're working on the Git team, please, data flows. That doesn't make sense that they're not supported. You can export them to JSON. Surely you can just put them into Git control. Anyway, let's have a look at Git, see what we need to update. So we'll see what happens. Unable to complete the action. So this is like the same errors I was getting when I created it from the other side as well. But, maybe it just needs time to think about it. I don't know. Anyway, let's give it some time to catch up, because maybe it's just catching up because it's got source control updates. I don't know. It's so weird. The reports haven't appeared. It's so buggy. I don't know. I thought we'd fix this. Mine came through okay, didn't it? I seem to remember it. But yeah, look, mine's fine. That's how it's supposed to look. Got one uncommitted change, some syncing issues, but other than that, all good. What's this one? Oh, the refresh. Oh, one thing that will happen that I noticed, if that actually does work, and hopefully it does get its act together in a second. But one thing that will happen is because the semantic model you get, it's metadata only. It branches the code, but it doesn't take the data. So it won't have any data in it if you look at this report. It says can't load the data for this visual. And the reason why, and there's no slicer in my slicer. And the reason why is there's no data in the semantic model, because I would have to set up the connection to this one. So I might need to connect to my dev data sources or whatever they are or whatever. And so there's a little bit of work to be done there. Okay, anyway, that's Git integration with workspaces. Let's see if it's figured it out. Oh, that's while I was talking. Hey, it did. Look at that. Amazing. So Aardvark, SG development. Look at that. And they're all good. Everything's in here. The report hasn't come through, but at least it's looks like it's properly set up now. What happens if I hit update now? Is it going to work? Is it going to allow me to sync? It's got some commits. Oh, it's so confusing. Show details. Yeah, these data flow staging warehouse error is still there. I mean, it's got some uncommitted changes. I don't know. It's horrible. Anyway, that's where it's up to with branching. So probably not really a production thing right now. I probably would say, like bit of work to do there, bit of work to do. So if you need to test your changes in its own workspace, I'd probably recommend you probably branch from. What would you do? Would you publish everything up individually? I don't know. There's still, yeah. This whole Git integration seems still like a work in progress to me. Hopefully it'll be good soon, because this is something we really need, especially if we're like serious. But yeah, we need data flows. We need this to be nice and work and make sense and not have errors, and then we'd be good. All right. On to spreadsheets. Hooray. We love spreadsheets. If you remember from last week or the week before, I spoke about Danielle Stein-Fairhurst and her awesome budgeting and forecasting spreadsheet that we've got here. Here's what it looks like. The Executive General and Administration budget. I'll talk to you a little bit about these different departments and organizational structure as well. Okay, so, but this is the budgeting and forecasting spreadsheet. I want to talk to you about how this works a bit more now that I've had a bit of a chance to play with it. I want to talk to you about this structure and what it is and what it means. So Back to the whiteboard. Boom. Okay, so our organization is structured like this. We've got, let me just check because I can tell you from here, we have got how many different organizations? How many different? We've got France and Germany, Canada, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divisions in the US and Australia. So we've got Europe, North America, which is Canada and the US, and our Pacific operations, which is Australia. So let's just, so Australia, France, Germany, Canada, and then how was it? 5 US divisions. Is that 5? Nice drawing. All right. France, Australia, France, Germany. This is Canada. We'll put a little red clover leaf in there. Germany. Is the red on the top for Germany or on the bottom? I can't remember. I'm going to accidentally do like Belgium or something. Anyway, I know what I mean. France, change that to blue. Do it this way. I think the black's on the bottom for Germany. Apologies to all the German people out there that I got the flag wrong. This is Australia. Well, I'm not going to draw an Australian flag. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just make it yellow with a green kangaroo in it. Kangaroo. There you go. That's Australia. Give you legs. All right. Canada, Germany. Oh, that definitely doesn't look like Germany. And Germany would be yellow, wouldn't it? Right. Oh, I'm confused. Anyway, apologies to German people. I know what I mean. That's Germany. And then there's 5 US divisions. Okay. So then they all come in, and then they've each got a budget and they've each got a forecast. And then actually each one of these, so each one of these has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 departments. So we'll just branch out Australia here. So we've got corporate, executive general, inventory management, manufacturing, quality, research, and sales. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so each one of those has a budget and forecast. So that's wrong, Greg. That's wrong. So that's complicated, isn't it? I think this is sufficiently complicated that people can say, well, if you can do it with this, you can pretty much do it with any org structure, right? I think that's pretty complicated. So this is our organization, and this is our department level. DEP. I accidentally wrote a P. My mouse drawing is doing great. And then we got to consolidate all of these budgets and forecasts into a single budget and forecast for the organization, but then also for the whole organization, whole of org, so a consolidated budget and forecast across all the divisions. Luckily for us, they have exactly the same. Now, I'm kind of cheating here, to be honest, but they have exactly the same structure. So they have exactly the same department and names. And to be honest, this is just for time's sake, because this won't be the same in real life. In real life, all of these organizations, these guys will be on SAP, and then these guys will use Xero, and then these guys will use some other thing, and then these guys will have 4 different other ERPs, and you'll spend forever, consolidating, and then all of your budgeting and forecasting, everyone will have different accounts, and you'll have to set up a mapping table to map all the accounts. So I'm just skipping all of that, and I'm sorry if you want us to cover that kind of minutiae of like how do you consolidate different ERPs and all the rest of it. Honestly, all that work happens in the back end where you have to just sit down and do the hard yards of saying, well, if I'm talking about trade receivables inside Australia, sales and marketing, account code 1130, if it's account code 416 in a different ERP system, then you need to set up mapping tables to map all that stuff up. I'm going to skip all of that. I feel like that's just boring, data quality and governance work. If you want to do something around that, we'll do that as a separate piece, I think. But let me know. I mean, I guess it's It's kind of interesting if you're into that, but I don't think that's necessarily entertaining. Talking about all the different, so they've all got the same structure, they've all got the same ERP. We're very lucky. Everybody's using SAP. Everybody's got the same account codes and budgeting and forecasting. Okay, woohoo! We don't need to do any of that. So we assume that all of that is solved. If you haven't solved that issue in your organization and you're looking to do something like this, start that project now because that's going to take a while. All right. So it's exactly the same structure, lots and lots of different spreadsheets. And then so this is one spreadsheet for one department inside Australia is basically what we're looking at. Oh, the other thing that you'll need to solve that we didn't talk about is currency conversion, CCC. CCC, CCC, CCC. I actually get asked this quite a lot, so I might as well talk about it. People say to me, hey, here's your Power BI report at the end of this process. And they say, can you display all of this in Australian dollars, please? Because I want to see my report in Australian dollars. And I say, sure. Is your French ERP system converting it to Australian dollars when you do the calculation, like when you do the transaction? And they're like, no, no, no. I want you to figure out how many, euros in Australia. And I'm like, but to do that, we'd need to know at the date and time of each transaction, what was the exchange rate between the euro and the Australian dollar. And you probably, you can get that information and you can do it in your bronze layer. That's why we call bronze layer the standardization layer. This is work you could do here, currency conversion. But man, that's a lot of work though, isn't it? If you think about it, if you've got multiple thousands and millions and billions of transactions, and then you're going back retrospectively and applying the currency conversion rate, you have to look up the currency conversion rate for that line. You have to then apply the currency conversion. Blah, 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 horrible. I'm sure lots of people have got interesting. For the budgeting process, there's usually a budgeting exchange rate which is fixed for at least one period. Sometimes it's fixed for the whole financial year. So yeah, so there's lots of different ways to address this particular problem, and that one that Alex just suggested is exactly one of them. There's lots of different ways. People do I've seen all sorts of different ways of approaching currency conversion rate, and I'm sure in our what do the finance people use? The GAP, generally accepted accounting principles. I'm sure they've got a solution for it. The best solution and the almost never possible solution is that we do it when the transaction happens. So this ERP system gets the current exchange rate, adds that right now. So that's part of the system. It's pretty rare that I see that. Some forward-thinking organizations have that. It's really interesting. All of Microsoft's like AdventureWorks samples and things like that always has things in local currency. And so there's usually you have a local currency column and then you have the converted currency column. I think Xero does it. Xero has local currency and converted currency. So Xero converts everything to Australian dollars, or does it convert everything to the local currency of your account maybe? Which is nice. If you've got multiple international subsidiaries, having everything converted at transaction time is the best solution. Okay, so tell all your ERP people to go and update that. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to retrospectively apply some kind of business rule, and it's going to catch you out. It's a lot of work, no matter which way you think about it. So currency conversion is an issue. So everything's in the local currency in our little thing too. So I am skipping over a huge piece of complexity, and I want to acknowledge that because I think a lot of people provide samples like, hey, look at my cool Power BI sample, and they don't acknowledge the work that needs to go in to make these models work, right? And all of that work is making sure it's all local currency, making sure that the organization structure makes sense and isn't crazy, making sure that all of the account codes are the same, making sure that all that stuff that's a huge amount of work just to make that work. But it's really nothing to do with the data analysis side. So, except for the currency conversion, I guess. But anyway. So yeah, shout out to all the hardworking people who are working on figuring out those problems inside their organizations. I know there's many of you. Cool. Hopefully I haven't completely lost my train of thought. Right, we're back to our budget. So assuming we don't have any of those problems and everything's wonderful, I thought, now here's where I want your feedback, folks, because we need to think about this. I am doing only expenditures at the moment. So the way that it kind of comes in, if we look at the import, so what I've done is that I've thrown into my OneLake bronze lakehouse. Okay. I have created a file folder called ERP extracts, and I've thrown in some CSV files, and these are extracts from my ERP systems from all the different systems. USA has one unified system. Australia, Canada, France, Germany, USA in their unified system. Okay. How did I do that, you ask? Okay, so let's people interested in knowing that? Probably they are. We've covered this before, but we can talk about it. So in my bronze lake house, once I've set up the lake house, and then I set up this OneLake desktop. Let's look it up. Here it is. I'll give you this link in case you need it. OneLake File Explorer. OneLake File Explorer. This is like OneDrive that you do it. It's in preview. Download OneLake File Explorer. That's all you really need to do. You download it, you install it, and it gives you a little OneLake inside your File Explorer. Here it is. And then if I go to OneLake, this is a list of all of my awesome Fabric workspaces that are enabled for Fabric. Okay, and here, 5-day data platform. These are all there's a wacky workspace was in here at one point. We did some weather data at one point. There's a few internal workspaces. There's CDAO workspaces when I did a talk for CDAO conference. And here's our Aardvark Finance Dev workspace. So anything inside Power BI, which is, that has this diamond next to it, and is a Fabric-enabled workspace and not a premium workspace, which is a different thing, is going to appear then after you've installed the workspace, the data thing here. So I didn't have to do anything to make that happen. It just appeared, and I was like, cool. And then because I have a lakehouse inside here, it creates a folder for it. So if we're in SG development, because I have a lakehouse, this lakehouse specifically, if you say, why doesn't this lakehouse and this warehouse appear? I think it does. Maybe they do. They do. Here they are. So every lakehouse and warehouse gets their own folder inside my development thing. So I went into this lakehouse, and you get this: files, table maintenance, and tables. I think that's the default. I think it always has files. Yeah. So this is the default set of things. The good thing about files is you can put files in it. So I created a folder called ERP extracts, and I chucked it in my lakehouse. So if we go to the actual lakehouse here, which is this one, and I open up files, hopefully, oh, it's not synced. Is it not synced? It says status synced. Hang on, folks. Hang on, folks. Where's me files? Oh, I don't know. Should be there. Oh, am I in the right workspace, or did I? Aardvark Finance Bronze. Oh no, I was in SG development. Ooh. Oh no, Finance Dev. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Go to this lakehouse. See, I was in the copy of the lakehouse. So it wasn't there, I think. Yay, here it is. Whew, thank goodness. Okay, here's our files. So this means I can drop files. I can have a file drop scenario. I can drop files in here, extract them from my system, drop them in here. As long as they sync, they will appear here. I don't need a gateway. I don't need any special Duvalakis. It will just appear. Okay, so that's one way to sync data. And so I could drop those spreadsheets in there as well, right? I could drop my budgeting spreadsheet in there as well. Now, is this the best possible way you could do it? I don't know. I kind of like giving people SharePoint sites and things like that to drop files into. So it's one of those things that we that like I kind of like this as an idea. I probably would like to be able to give people, like, if you could potentially, like, you could create an X drive, you know, like a local drive, this kind of thing. From this file, and then they could drop, and you could say, hey, just throw things into the X drive, you know, like people like that kind of scenario. So I kind of like these file drop things. Putting it directly into the lakehouse, maybe you would have an own dedicated lakehouse for people just dropping files in. If people are used to doing that, then I quite like this as an approach. But yeah, I also like giving people SharePoint. You get a bit more control. So I'm 50-50 on this. I probably prefer this over OneDrive because it's easier. No, it's easier from our perspective. And if we can create an X drive, then it's secure and they shouldn't be able to mess it up. As long as that you can give them limited access, like you limit their access to their own folder. So maybe you create a folder for like Australia, and then Australia can just drop whatever they want in here, but they don't have access to drop files over the top of everybody else. That's kind of the idea you would have there. So anyway, so I might leave that Australia there, actually. Maybe we'll do that. So we've got our ERPs extracting stuff. Luckily, the ERPs are all the same ERP. It's got exactly the same structure. Hooray for us. Our life is easy. And now we can create, like we could create notebooks and start querying these CSV files. Like, that's how cool this whole situation is. All right. So we've got some files in. Okay, back to the spreadsheet. So that's the structure of the organization. So right now we're looking at Australia and we're looking at executive general and administration. And then, okay, what I was going to talk about was I've just taken the expenditure accounts, these ones. I have not taken the assets and the balances accounts. And I have not taken the revenue accounts. So the question that I have for you, because I'm not a finance guy, I am a data guy. Should I be bringing revenue in? And should I be bringing these other weird accounts in? I really like, actually, that they've got a headcount account inside their P&L. I want to do this. I think this is a great idea. I don't know if it's possible I use Xero. Could I put headcount as a value, and then I don't know. Like I could do it as like a transaction, you know, like a what do they call them? Just a one-off transaction. Okay, people are saying things, but so I'm going to go to the comments in a second. But the question is, if you were doing budgeting and forecasting, if you had this structure and you had multiple departments and all that kind of stuff, would you just give them, if you wanted them to manage their own budget and forecast, would you just give them their expenditures, right? And say, well, this is the thing that we care about from you. And then we can, because we'll attribute revenue to you. Or do you want them to budget and forecast revenue as well? Like, I was thinking for sales, like, do sales budget and forecast revenue? I don't know. Yeah, so I've got expenditure, yeah. Departments just budget expenses. Thank you, Andrew. Oh, Alex, sorry, it's Alex. Only teams who drive sales manage revenue. Yeah. If you add headcount to your budget, what would you double or enter against? Yeah, that's a good point. Negative headcount. Yeah, good point. Okay, maybe I don't want headcount. Alex, I'm just going back to your earlier comment. I want to read it. Your right, it's relevant for all budgeting. Once you have approved budget with the board, you throw it to the rubbish bin because everything has changed since you started the budgeting process. Yeah, I know. Customer demand, running projects, FX rates. This is why it's critical to automate much possible data prep and consolidation. Uh, yeah, with the monthly forecast. Yeah. So lots of considerations here in this thing, and I'm trying to make it as complex as it needs to be, I think, to demonstrate the capability of the platform, but not so complex that we get bogged down in minutiae of tiny little calculations and things like that. So I'm trying to, I'm doing a bit of a balancing act here. I realize that. Shelley said currency conversion rules for the ATO, and she put a link to the currency conversion rules. TLDR should be the rate at the time of the transaction. Exactly, Shelley. It should be the rate at the time of the transaction. And so that's the rule from the ATO. So how do you do that unless you write it at the time of a transaction? So if you've got a system that doesn't write the rate at the time of a transaction, then you've got to retrofit that back onto your thing. Yeah, I think sales will do revenue related. Sales would do revenue related forecasting. So we might have to think about that for our sales department. But in the meantime, I just wanted to explain that I'm not bringing every single account. I'm not forecasting every account. I'm not budgeting every account. I'm just doing expenditure accounts. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about in this was, I suspect, like back in my IT budgeting days, we would have a set of accounts that we would do. Like I wouldn't worry about the rent account, for example, because I'm in IT. Like I'm not paying for the building. Someone else, buildings facility management would have the rent account in their expenses budget, right? But I might have a rent line for the data center. So maybe I am paying some rent and therefore I do have rent in my budget, right? And so different departments are going to have different lines. I'm not sure I'm going to replicate that in this. I'm probably just going to have every department's going to have a value in every line. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, that's kind of how it's working. All right, so we're going to pull the raw data, the actuals. You see this is called actual import. That's because I'm pulling this into my budgeting spreadsheet from here. Now, I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but it's fine. So what we need to do is we need to bring data. So this is the way this spreadsheet's set up at the moment. This is literally a copy paste exercise. We have got no automation in, and in the ideal world, I'd hit the refresh button here, data refresh all, go, and it would go and get me the latest figures for these months, right? That would be the perfect scenario. Right now, I want to keep this manual and simple because let's make a manual. I firmly believe we've got to make a manual process that works, and then we'll start automating it as we go. So I'm not going to, even though you might be thinking, well, Greg, why don't you just automate the import? I'm not going to do that in the short term. We're going to manually enter the budget. We're going to manually enter the actuals. It's going to automatically calculate the forecast. Okay. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk or ask you guys about is how long this forecast is not too bad. So here's what's happening at the moment. I'll just take you through the structure of this spreadsheet in a bit more detail. This is our budget. Okay. It says budget. Budget. So we've got a budget from December 22 to November 23. And this is all the budget lines for all of our expense numbers. Now, I don't have the descriptions in here, but they are here somewhere. I just got to scroll across, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here's our budget. Here's our budget accounts. And then here's all the budgets for all the months, all the way up to the end of November. And here's our actuals. Now, what I've got here is that we've come to the end of a budget period. You see, I've only got budget up to November, and I've got actuals all the way up to November. But what I should have coming into the new financial year, although it's not at the end of financial year, is that I should have budget going forward for another 12 months at least, right? So I should have budget filled out here. So I'm going to do that. I probably can just like almost drag it across, but I'm not going to do that in case I break something. So I think I need at least, I want to say, I want all a forward 12 months. So you normally you would do your budget like once a year. Maybe you do it once a quarter. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Um, let's say we do it once a quarter. So at the end of every quarter, so at the end of December, I would do my budget for the next 12 months. And then at the end of the next quarter, so the end of March or the beginning of April, I would then do the budget forward again for 12 months and then include the next 12 months there. So I would always have like a quarter, like a year and a quarter type in advance in my budget. Okay. You could do it that way. I don't know. How do people do it? How do people do their forecast budgeting? How often do you do it? And then how far in advance do you do it? Is it just once a year to do it for 12 months? So, and then you get to the end of the year like this. So we're right. We literally would have just done it, right? So at July 2024, we get to July 2024 and by the end of that, you have to have the budget in place for the next 12 months. I guess people start their budgeting process in March because you're consolidating all this budget. I know I'm rambling a bit here, but I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. So what happens? People start their budgeting in March, they get it approved in April, it all goes to finance in May, May gets it all sorted by June, and then by July, you've got your forecast 12-month budget, and then that's it, set in stone until the next year. All right, I'm going to assume that. Tell me if I've got it. Yeah, once a year. Okay, thanks, Pranav. Okay, all right, let's go with that scenario. And then you can always get creative with that. So what's going to happen is as we get into, so we haven't set our budget for the year yet. So I've got another 6 months worth of budget I need to do. I'm going to put that 6 months worth of budget in, and then my actuals we're going to pretend we're at November 2023. Okay. And then this is our budget going backwards. That's what's happening with budget. With actuals, now this forecasting model is pretty good. I've noticed in Excel, like it does a pretty good job, but where it struggles, and I don't know if I can show you this. Let me see if I can find that graph. Where did I put that graph? Oh, there it is. Okay. Where I found it struggled is right at the very beginning. So this is the forecast calculation that happens, right? And what it does is it takes, can we click in here and it'll show us? It does a forecast calculation based on all of the preceding months up to the month you're up to, and then so the forecast. So this is a forecast based on 12 months worth of values, right? But if I go here to my assumptions and I set the current start date to be, or the forecast, the start date to be, let's say February 23. That's 01/02/23. And the current month to be, oh no, the start date was wrong. It's not the start date, it's the current month. Current month should be February 23, sorry. Okay. So now my forecasting should starts earlier because I set the start to happen earlier. And it's like the forecasting goes out of whack because it's only, if we look at this formula, it only has two values to forecast off. It's forecasting off December 22 and January 23. And I don't know if this is like a limitation in the design of Danielle's spreadsheet. Like this is supposed to be a 12-month rolling forecast spreadsheet. So I think it needs to be, I need 2 years worth of actual data. So that early on in the forecast, when we're early on in the year, it's a rolling, I need a rolling 12 months, right? So the forecast always uses the prior 12 months or potentially even further. I think it gets more accurate the more data you give it because it has seasonality and all that kind of stuff. So why don't we give it like a rolling 2 years to forecast on? And so what will happen is, so the way that people will use this is that they will get their extract out of their ERP system for 2 years of data up to today. So today, right now, today is November 23. We're going to paste it in here. Our budget will hopefully be in here because we've done our budgeting, and it will literally just recalculate the forecast. Just like that. It's amazing. Using this forecast.ets, which is great. Okay, so it's pretty easy. I think finance people love this kind of stuff, so they can do that. No worries. So that will be, so see how it says 12-month rolling forecast here, but it's not. It's that at this point it's a 2-month forecast, and so yeah. Anyway, I think I need more actuals data, so I'm going to reshape the data inside this spreadsheet so that it is a 12-month rolling forecast always. And then we'll have budget going up to the end of the financial year, and we'll be great. Cool. Alex says it depends on organizational maturity. The basic process is you do it once a year and then try to do a quarterly forecast. So we can do a quarterly forecast because we've got this nifty forecasting sheet. We just have to have our finance people redo this sheet once a quarter. An advanced team have a rolling 12 to 24 month forecast, so it never ends. The budget just becomes a version of the, yeah, okay. So there's just constant budgeting and forecasting going on, which you potentially could get to this if you had this kind of tool happening for you. Okay, so we need to make some adjustments to our spreadsheet. We need to have budget going forward to the end of the financial year, and we're going to have forecasts, our forecast actuals, so the source for the forecast going back 2 years, so that we've always got, or back always 12 months. Yeah, always 12 months. So it's a proper rolling forecast. And then this is a view of these two mixed together. So if it happens, so it uses the budget. If this isn't populated, so what I could do here actually, because I've set that to February, I've said the current month is February, I could actually delete all this, right? So let's say we're back in February. We've only got 3 months worth of actuals, but see how this is populated? It uses the budget because this isn't populated. So you get this mixed view, which is kind of cool too. So that's what this actual versus budget view is. All right, man, I spent a long time talking about that spreadsheet, but I think it's important because it's like the whole thing that feeds all of the data to our system. Cool. So that's how the spreadsheet's going to work. And then I'm going to build out, I haven't done this Power BI export tab yet. I know this is the thing that I said I would do that I haven't done yet. So I've got to do that before next week so that we can properly ingest our data. And then we'll start bringing it in. How long have we got? 5 minutes. So we won't have time to do too much, but our ERP exports, I don't think we need to worry too much about that. Last week, we started setting up a data flow. What I'll do when I finish messing around with this spreadsheet, which is saved in a very highly secure location. Let me find it. Not there. It's in my Lunch and Learn folder. Lunch and Learn, Fabric Friday, sample data. Nope. No, it's not in my Lunch and Learn folder. Where have I saved this? Training, general department budgets. Oh, okay. That's a really weird spot. Can I open file location? This is the best thing that Microsoft ever invented, was open file location. Power BI training lab development. Is that where it is? Okay, interesting. Sorry, I know this is boring watching me click around my computer. Okay, I found it. Department budgets. Oh, this is the one that included revenue, but we decided we're not going to do revenue, so I think I can get rid of that now. Okay, so I'm going to create multiple copies of this. And that's all going to go in the Australia folder. So this is simulating each one of our departments. This is going to be corporate or whatever. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to be a spreadsheet for each department. Australia is going to collect all of those spreadsheets and pop it in the Australian folder. There's going to be one for US, there's going to be one for Canada, there's going to be one for France, there's going to be one for Germany. So I'll do all of those copying of spreadsheets once I've got it. I've got different data for each one of those, so don't worry, it should all reconcile with what I've got in my nifty little system. And then what we'll need to do is to figure out how to bring all that in. So that's what it'll be next week, is we're going to be doing all sorts of crazy spreadsheet ingestion, bring all of those spreadsheets in to create that consolidated piece. You might have been waiting like 5 weeks for me to actually do this. So congratulations if you held out this long. Forecast is driven off the actual for the month. That's right, Rajiv. Yep. Where can you find the older recordings? I'll put the links in the chat. We've got a few. They're going up on YouTube, but I think marketing has taken a little while to get it up there. So I put the links in the chat last time, so I'll copy them back down. They should be there in the history for those people that have been here for a few different things. So yeah, next week. We're going to bring all of those in to create our consolidated. Let's go to our dark finance dev. Let's go to our thing. We're going to do this bit. I'm going to do this bit here. All the department budgets are going to be brought in. We've got lots of departments now because I didn't realize there's actually 5 different countries and then 7 departments for each country. So it's going to be a few more than 4. Bring them all into our consolidated budget to make one big giant budget file, and that's going to become into our bronze data, and then we'll do a little bit of silver work on it. I'll update this diagram as well to reflect reality when it's all done. Cool. Well, that's about it, folks. Good use case for Fabric tools and data automation. Yeah, that's why I want to do it. I think it's good. We can see how Fabric performs in terms of automation, and I think it's a common use case. A lot of people are doing this kind of thing. I've made it complicated enough that it should be challenging enough that hopefully if we solve all the problems associated with this, it will work for everybody. And then eventually we'll get to some really nice looking income statement, consolidated income statement, consolidated balance sheet, consolidated cash flow stuff. So that'll be interesting when we need to bring in the rest of the data after the budgeting and forecasted stuff. But that should be just an ERP extract, I think. Lovely. Thanks, folks. Well, lunchtime's over. You have to go back to work now. But I hope you have a great weekend. And and I hope we'll see you next week for more exciting Fabric fun, where we try to figure out how Fabric works and whether it's ready to use or not. We've still got plenty of days left in our trial and they keep resetting us, so we might as well play around with it while we've got the opportunity. There's the link to the YouTube. Thank you, Shelley. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay, we'll see you later.